my name's Richard, and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. Tonight is a quick start on the Kickstarter, and what that means is sometimes there will be people who are running a Kickstarter campaign, and they will be in the middle of their campaign, and we want to find out a little bit about themselves, about their project, and find out a little bit about the game, a little bit about themselves, a little bit about how they got into the hobby. So joining me today is from B Team Games is Jason Bice. And Jason Bice is here to talk about Loot the Body, which is his campaign, which is currently running on Kickstarter. So hello, Jason.
Hey Richard, how are you?
I'm very good. It's getting into the Christmas spirit. We've kind of got over the big Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to you first of all over there in Americas. Hope you had a good time. I take it are you still getting? Did you feast plenty? Are you still got some turkey left, or have you managed?
We had a pretty good feast. My wife and I are actually going vegan this month, so we didn't have any turkey. My wife made a lentil Wellington, and it was really good. And we actually ate the last of the leftovers, I think, for dinner yesterday.
Do you miss the turkey, or was that a combined choice?
It was a choice that my wife helped me make.
It was an instruction. No, we don't have we don't have Thanksgiving, but for some reason we now have Black Friday over here, so we don't bother being grateful for anything. We just go out and spend lots of money on sales and board games. So it's just which is very, very nice. For people that haven't listened to us before, thank you for joining us. As we get into the mood, there is a small selection of leftover turkey sandwiches in the hallway, right next to a couple of mince pies. The Christmas tree is not yet up, but we will be putting it up soon. But in the meantime, help yourself either to some cocoa or some mulled wine. The reason that we do this is quite simply because we believe in our hearts that there's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games. In fact, we're only one of two in Scotland. There's us, and there's the Unlucky Frog Gaming podcast. So if you listen to us, you should check them out, because they do an awful lot of stuff like we do, except they do it a little bit more Scottishy. The other reason that we do this, as I say, we like to get creators like Jason on to have a chat about themselves and have a chat about the games. So without further ado, Jason, do you want to maybe start off the I was going to say your defense. It's like, the witness calls Mr. Bice. If you'd like to take the stand, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you in your cardboard journey. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into the hobby?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like a lot of people, I spent a lot of time growing up playing card games with my family. Just classic stuff, spades and hearts and Uno and Skip-Bo, and just spent a lot of time with family, taking those Friday nights and playing games. And so grew up doing that. And then when I got to college, I discovered a little game called Settlers of Catan. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one. It's not very heard of, right?
No. How'd you spell that?
I'm not sure. It's foreign, so I'm not so good with it. But yeah, so picked that up and started playing that with friends and family, and moved from there to King of Tokyo, and found out there was a board game warehouse in the area. It's CLS Games. I don't know if you've seen them on Board Game Geek, but the owner, he's here in Atlanta near where I'm at, and so I'd go over to his house and hang out in his board game warehouse and just talk board games and find new things to buy and just talk mechanics and all that kind of stuff. And went from playing games into saying, I've got some ideas on games myself, and started working with them, and went from that all the way to designing full games.
Was he like do you know how you get, and there's always some kind of this kind of thing in either like a Bond film or where there's a hero, where you walk into some kind of warehouse place and they've got all the weapons out, and the guy goes from place to place, and he's like, this is the one. If you want to blow him up at 5 meters, that's what you want. You want those. Those are the special guns. Don't touch that button. Was he kind of like? Did you walk into his
Yeah.
warehouse and was it just like covered in games?
I've never thought about it that way, but it was actually very much like that. We'd walk through and I'd say, well, I'm looking for something that's cooperative, or I'm looking for something that's light that I can, convince my family to play as a board game. And he'd say, oh, well, let me show you what's in, the Final Fantasy Silver series over here, or check out this Ameritrash game over here. It's got this mechanic. And so, just kind of picked up a lot of vocabulary in those conversations, and really, I guess the best weapon for game night, as it were.
Did he? I mean, did he categorize them by? Did he have a category kind of thing? Did he say this is where I keep my worker placement. This is where I keep my, this is where I keep my Ameritrash. This is where I keep my seventh continent. But you're not allowed to touch that one because you can't get hold of it yet.
That's right. No, he had them just kind of all over. Typically, I think they were typically arranged by like publisher to make it easier for him sending them out to people.
So, did it become a case that every time you walked away after spending a night with him, spending the evening, spending the night, and you went home with some cardboard, kind of like did you always kind of say, oh, just take it, go on? Did you end up having a lot of purchases kind of going on after having a game night?
I definitely did. You know what? He's famous for his Black Friday sale as well. Like he does some deep discounts for his Black Friday sale. So I look forward to that sale every year.
Did you manage to treat yourself?
Well, I treat myself as well as my wife will let me. Got to make sure the kids need shoes and pants, and she likes to make sure we can pay the school bill. So outside of that, yeah, I treat myself a little bit here and there.
I just can't. That's just that you can wear cardboard things for shoes.
I keep telling her that. I've got a 3D printer that I use for putting some pieces together. I'm like, I can make you guys some like shoes.
I can print you any shoes you want. They could have flash shoes.
Yeah.
They could have any type of shoes if they want shoes with wings on them.
Exactly.
If they want, big, oh, what's wrong? Oh, I'm getting troubled at school. Well, here you what? Let me add a couple of inches to the size of your shoes, so you're now going to be an awful lot taller, so the bullies won't catch you. This is an untapped kind of resource. But yeah, I suppose you get social services saying you can't send your kids along dressed in magic cards. Well, okay, sorry, kind of thing. Was there? I mean, what was the kind of the games that made you turn from somebody being like a casual kind of gamer into, what were your first loves? I mean, you mentioned Catan, and I'll have to look it up on Google and see what that's all about. But was there anything that kind of fired up the imagination, and you went, yeah, this is not a hobby. I really like this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I played a lot of different games, but I'd say the first time when I thought, hey, I think I can design something, I was playing Castle Panic with some friends. It's a great game, and I'm looking at it, and it's kind of touted as this, hey, this is kind of like a tower defense game. But it's not really like classic tower defense. And I was playing it, and I said, we could make a tower defense game. Like we could put something together that would be like a really good tower defense game. And so that was the first one that kind of sparked that. This is worth investing some time in. And I studied mathematics in school, and I love crafting things and kind of doing engineering things. So once I got into designing games and researching like what it takes to do it, I was like, oh, this kind of fits all the areas that I just really enjoy doing things.
So are you involved in engineering, maths, designy stuff? Is that what you do for a day job then?
I work for a small computer company named Apple.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but I've worked for them. I guess
I have to write them down because I keep Catan and now this Apple How is that just spelt like the fruit?
It is. It is. It's just like the fruit. And
Just
but I've been with him for about 7 years, so I don't
right,
get to use
okay.
a lot of math, but I do get to work
Hmm.
with technology a bunch and meet interesting people. So.
What do you are you a software engineer for them then?
Oh man, if I was a software engineer, I would not need Kickstarter to print my own games. No, no, I work with large contracts with businesses and support large businesses.
Okay. And do they sell more than apples at Apple, or is there a range of fruit that they do,
It
or did you just stay with the kind of the mainstay?
they're
I
big on mobile fruit, on taking fruit with you. That's their thing. So.
I wouldn't have thought that would have been an innovation because your average apple can usually travel quite far without need for kind of a help or assistance with regards to transportation. I don't think they're going to be a success. I think they need to look at their business model.
It's
Um,
possible.
definitely. Is it? I mean, so did that kind of spark you on to kind of from the Castle Panic side of things? Did the tower defense game, is that, did you move and develop that into something else? Did you start developing kind of other games, or were you constantly kind of playing games and then thinking about alternative versions that you could kind of produce?
The path that we kind of took was from that idea to do the tower defense. I was working with different maps on that game, um, putting those together. And my daughter, who was I think she was 5 at the time, she wanted to come and play with some pieces that I was working with. Some bits of construction paper and hexes and things that I was working with, and
Yeah.
and had a few baubles I was using for pieces, and she wanted to sit down and play with me. So we sat down and we grabbed a couple of dice and made a couple of quick rules on just playing, and it actually turned into this really neat game. I adjusted a couple of rules after that, playing with her, and
Hmm.
it actually turned into a game called Dragonfly Dash, that's ready
All
for
right.
publication.
Yeah.
We haven't put it out or anything like that. I'd like to get some fresh art for it, but it's a simple kids game with a little layer of strategy, and you roll some dice and you make decisions on which way to go as your dragonflies are trying to get to safety and your frogs are trying to eat the dragonflies. So it's this fun game I made with my daughter, and that was the first one I kind of looked into getting published. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I would say one game, evolved into other games as I kind of went through.
Okay. Okay. What's kind of floating the boat at the moment then? I mean, what games have you been playing quite recently that you've really enjoyed?
Yeah. So recently, I've really been enjoying Clank from Renegade.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's so good.
yeah, it's definitely good. Yeah, Renegade's been putting out some good hits. Scott Gato's got really good taste when it comes to the games he's picking out. So I'm loving everything they're doing. I love Arcadia Quest. I love a good dungeon crawl. Um,
Yeah.
I love playing D&D and storytelling and things like that. All of that kind of, as you've seen in Loot the Body, you can probably see kind of the D&D inspiration that's there, and kind of the homage to classic play there. Um, so all of those things are kind of the things I like to do. As everyone, I don't get to play nearly as much as I want to. I've got
Yeah.
3 kids, and 2 of them are really young, and so it's difficult to find a game night. But that's also influenced my game design as well. Like with Loot the Body, I mean, we kind of designed it for people that don't have a lot of time to play, but like dungeon
Yeah.
crawls, right? So you can take it out of the box and have a dungeon ready and game ready to play in under 2 minutes. And it's quick and easy to pick up. Those are kind of the design elements that are required to get my wife involved with playing a game.
Have you? I mean, how old is your oldest then out of the 3 kids?
Yeah, my eldest is she's 8. She'll be 9 in January, and then I've got a 3-year-old and about a 20-month-old.
Wow, awesome. We started playing King Domino
Hmm.
with our 5-year-old, and he loves it. So
Hmm.
I don't know if you've got that in your collection, but
No, I don't have that one.
it's fantastic. It's well worth looking out because it's got an educational aspect to it in terms of how you
Hmm.
order the tile, and yeah, he's been playing that, and it's been absolutely a lot of fun. And I we kind of play it almost kind of every day because it's a very simple. You're talking about a simple kind of set up and put down again.
Mm-hmm.
King Domino is very, very good. I'm not sure about Queen Domino. I've heard it's more complicated because they're expanding the rules. But as a dad to a dad, I would say if you've not got that in your collection, it's really, really inexpensive as well. I'm not asking you to put down, it's quite easy to say, honey, it's $20.
Exactly.
and it's educational and it's good fun, and you can have you've got your 4 players, and it teaches them about spatial awareness and orders of numbers and color matching and everything like that. And
yeah,
I'm
that'd
not
be great.
Definitely worthwhile checking out. We're going to talk about it on another show in the next couple of weeks, myself and Colin, because we've both played it for the first time 3-4 weeks ago and have loved it so much that I went and got it from my boy. So it's quite good. Has that affected your decisions in terms of have you tried to be thinking about games accessibility then? Because it seems like, I mean, look the body, apart from obviously the rather macabre name, to be honest. The it's quite a cartoony kind of looking game. It's got kind of quite simple, quite pleasing kind of illustrations on it. Is that because you're quite family orientated? Are you looking more towards a simpler game than your kind of your bigger, heavier type Euro type games?
Yeah, I think so, and I think we made that decision for a couple of different reasons. As you mentioned, being able to play it with kids is definitely important, and I definitely agree. The name Loot the Body, it's got a little bit of an edge to it, but it's so recognizable for anyone in kind of the dungeon crawl. I think there's a big market for people that love that genre but have families now and maybe don't have time to get out Descent or put together a whole, section of minis for Zombicide or something like that, or just want to play with their kids, I think there's a big market for that and a big need for it. So that definitely went into it. The illustration style, I'm in love with the work that our artist does for it. I love kind of the cartoony style that's there. I intend to use the illustrations in a follow-up game that's in the same universe as Loot the Body. So I definitely want to keep using it. But yeah, those are big influences on why we went that direction.
I mean, let's let's talk about the game. I mean, how did it come about? Was it just sitting down one day, oh, we'll do this, or was it off the back of the other game that you made with your daughter? Or, I mean, what gave you the idea to say, actually, this is a good idea? You mentioned D&D. Mm-hmm. That was a little bit of an influence, but what kind of made you think, actually, I can do something with this?
So I remember the day that I first came up with Loot the Body, and I remember because I woke up with the idea in my head, and I had almost a complete set of rules like that just poured out of me after waking up. So I got my computer, started typing out these rules, and I remember the day because it was the day that we were supposed to go and close on our house. And I remember making us late because I'm typing rules and my wife's trying to get us out the door. And I say, no, I've got to write this down right now. It worked out. We're not homeless. We closed on the house. But I remember the day, and so it came out kind of like that, and it was called Loot the Body from the get-go. Some of the original mechanics were a little bit different. There was slapping involved, and the dungeon was set up a little bit differently. I think like version-wise, the version that's on Kickstarter is like my rule set's like 8.5 or something like that for different like major revisions to the rules.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an idea that came fully formed.
It's funny how you get people like that. It just how did it come along? It's like, well, it wrote itself. I wrote it, I prototyped it, I had the rules down and everything like that in kind of a day. And I know some people that take kind of months, years that go from the initial conception actually getting something kind of finished, Mm-hmm. He who shall not be named, Chris Davis, who I and was good friends with. I mean, should maybe just very quickly, as a quick aside, you did reply to that email and say that he is, that basically his monsters would probably not win in a battle because their muscles were all kind of airbrushed, basically, which was pretty good. He said it took him 6 years, basically.
Oh, wow,
to kind of put together, his kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
How do you play it? Take us through the kind of the mechanics. How do you play the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just start with game setup, right? I mean, you've always got to start there. You've got a set of boss monsters. You pick 3 of those at random, put them face down on the table, shuffle up all the dungeon cards. You're going to take the dungeon cards, you're going to put 4 on top of each of those 3 boss monsters and put the 3 stacks together. And just like that, you've got a randomly generated dungeon that's got monsters and traps and treasures and boss monsters in it. So the objective of the game is to survive the dungeon and acquire as much treasure as possible, kind of outdoing your friends. At the same time, you're really requiring your friends to play well so that you can survive. So it's got a semi-cooperative element to it. Everyone's going to get a hand of cards. Their hands are identical, with the exception that everyone gets to choose between one of 2 cards. One's more offensive, one's more defensive. So there's a little bit of variation. And then you jump right into it. The first player flips over the card in the middle, depending on what it is. You place a card face down, and then you quickly grab a die. And the die is a D20. You roll it and you see if it's a 1 or a 20. If it is, you get either a bonus or a penalty. But there's one less die than the number of players. So whoever doesn't get a die is going to get a penalty for being too slow. You're so slow, the monster's got a better chance to attack you back and things like that.
Right. Okay.
So it goes on like that for the 15 cards. You have to watch out because your friends, some of their things can damage you. You've got to think quick because the monsters are color coded. You've got to you can play just by matching colors, but you don't have to just match. The like green monsters are the weakest and absolutely any card will hit them, but red monsters are the strongest, and so only red and blue cards hit them. So there's this hierarchy of what cards will hit which monsters, and you're making decisions. Do I want to use this weapon that's going to do a lot of damage right now and get this much loot, or do I want to save it and get more loot later? So there's a lot of back end strategy that you have to think through really quickly as you're going through. If you faint, people loot your body. They take loot off of you.
Right.
So there's kind of there's additional ways to get other loot. But that's really the whole game. Is you're flipping over the card in the center, you're playing fast, grabbing a die, and then seeing if you destroyed a monster, got the treasure or not. You go through 15 cards in about 30 minutes, depending on how many people are playing and how quick you're playing. There's a lot of laughing, a lot of kind of emotional roller coaster if people roll 1s or 20s and that kind of thing, or somebody steals the card, steals a card from you, stuff like that. So there's a lot of kind of laughing at the table, a lot of joke telling. So it's pretty straightforward.
And what's been have you been able to get this kind of play tested?
Oh, absolutely. A lot then? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I've taken it around to different conventions around the country. I've got a regular group here in the Atlanta area that there's a group called the Alpharetta Guild of Geeks, and there's about 1,400 people in the group, and there are weekly meetings where everyone gets together and plays games and that kind of thing. So I've done that group. They've played it a bunch, and then I've got other meetup groups that I use and I take it to and get feedback. So just kind of all over the country, I've gotten feedback on it, and generally things are pretty positive. I love getting good criticism on whether it's, how to make cards simpler to read, or how to make the game easier, or something that might, slow down gameplay. And I'm a big believer in getting feedback and being responsive to it.
Okay. You've got in the campaign just now, you have at this moment you've got 13 days to go.
Right.
You're about a quarter of the way through the funding total. Is it really? I mean, with the way that Kickstarter is at the moment, is it difficult to have your kind of your project and your voice heard above all the other projects that are there? Has that been a challenge?
I would say, yeah, I would say that's been a big challenge. This Kickstarter, of course, is our first Kickstarter, so I think that ties into one of the toughest parts of figuring things out, figuring out the right way to go, and
Hmm.
which avenues are the right place to be talking. Do I want to be talking on social media and Facebook, or do I need to be spending time figuring out how to use Board Game Geek and make it effective, and which websites are good for ads? So there's been a lot of learning curve there through the campaign, excuse me, through the campaign and getting ready for the campaign. I mean, there's been a lot of good learns. And I'm happy to say, I mean, yeah, we're at 25% right now. We've got 13 days. The great thing about Kickstarter is if we're not heard, we can take, if we're not heard and we don't launch, we can take this and use it as a springboard to say, okay, well, what do we need to change? What are the big learns from this campaign? What can we
Hmm.
improve about the game to make it more appealing and put it back out there, 2, 3, 6 months down the road when we're ready to do that and kind of have a bigger community surrounding us.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the strange things. I don't think nowadays, and from this is from kind of almost seeing it on such a regular basis, that if a game doesn't fun the kind of the first time,
Hmm.
then that's that's no big thing.
Yeah.
it's not it's not a huge thing. And you know what I've seen now again, and now again, and kind of like on a regular basis, is there doesn't seem to be a big rhyme or reason why a game funds at one particular time over another particular time.
Hmm.
I can't put my, after speaking to the number of people that I've spoken to kind of running kind of Kickstarter campaigns, I still don't have the secret sauce. I could write down all the data on Excel spreadsheets and come up with graphs and tables and stuff like that. And I still can't, for some people, it's like, do you, I've known people that have not funded, have gone away, have come back 6 months later and funded within a matter of the first couple of days. On the other hand, I've seen people that have come back 3 weeks after cancelling their campaign and then gone ahead and done massive kind of numbers. So it's never. I mean, it can be time and it can be kind of like a whole kind of different types of reasons.
Hmm.
Are you do you do you back a lot yourself then? I mean, do you back Kickstarter games yourself on a regular basis?
I do. I've done I think 6 or 7 different games myself.
Mm,
I I love the ones that I've gotten. I've got Laser Riders and 5 Minute Dungeon, and I
yeah,
got one for my wife called Underlings of Underwing. It's a color theory game.
yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah, I've heard of Laser Riders because that's I think John Gilmore was and Christopher Bedell was
Hmm.
involved in Laser Riders from Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Right, right.
Um, and 5 Minute Dungeon,
Hmm.
definitely heard of that because that did extremely well.
It did, yeah.
Was that last year as well?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've certainly got the kind of like the reviews and the critical side of things. Is it? I mean, is it difficult to get kind of people to review the game when you're like a first time kind of designer developer?
It can be difficult, and one of the tricky parts is making that decision. Am I going to go to places that you have to pay for reviews, or do I want people that you don't pay for reviews, but typically have a
Yeah.
smaller audience? So there's a lot of big decisions to make there. Ultimately, I mean, we did a little bit of both. We went with Father Geek, and I got to tell you, I was really nervous about theirs because it was kind of coming down to the wire for our Kickstarter, and he's like, "Oh, we don't, we'll release the review," and it was like it was being released the day that we were starting the Kickstarter, and I'm thinking, he can be brutally honest, Cyrus, he can be brutally honest with games. If he doesn't like it, he says it. I told my wife, I was like, he's gonna come out and he's gonna hate it and he's gonna blast the game and it's gonna ruin everything and no one will ever want to read it on the, I won't have any time to do anything about it.
Did
And
you did you replace the carpet that you worn out, kind of pacing back and forward, waiting for the
a
game?
a little bit.
Yeah.
And but we were we were very pleasantly surprised that they gave us their seal of approval, where the children liked it, the parents liked it, the hardcore intense gamers liked it, and they were even playing an older prototype version before it got slimmed down into an easier to play game the way that it is now. So we were very pleased with just the great things they had to say about it. Um,
Hmm.
but reviews can definitely be tricky. I mean, who to go to, doing it in advance, because all the reviewers are getting so many people, they're booked so far in advance. You really
Yeah.
have to get ahead on that. Um, it's a big learning
I mean,
curve.
was this? I mean, the reviews. Were you doing kind of like print and play copies, or had you got actual kind of full prototypes kind of ready
Hmm.
to send out to reviewers?
So I've got what I call review prototypes. I'm big on having the aesthetics look good. I like one of the big things for me being brand new is I wanted people to know that we're serious about what we're doing. I'm
Yeah.
not sending out construction paper for somebody to play and that type of
No.
thing, which is fine. Some people, that works for some people, and that's what they've got as prototypes, especially if they're established. But I wanted to be able to show off our art. I think our art's a big selling point of the game. It's a very unique style. So I did bigger copies. I used the Game Crafter to print, professional grade, cards for the game and send them out. It cost me it's usually like $35 a copy for the review copies. So I've definitely invested some cash
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah. I mean, is that what you've noticed from being on this in first hand? Is I take it with you having to get the art and having to get the prototype copies, you've actually needed to kind of make an investment. You can't just turn up with an idea and say, okay, I've got this game idea, guys. Here's some basic stuff. Give me some money, kind of,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I think Kickstarter was like that probably 7 or 8 years ago. You could probably get away with that when they were pretty new, but now you do have to have something that's a bit more polished, and you have to show that you're willing to put the work. I think people have been burned too many times from, hey, I've got this idea. Um,
I know.
and so you have to show that you've got a product ready, and that's been our big thing, is saying, hey, we've got a product that's ready to ship to the printers. I've got, and I've been lucky as well. I do a lot of demo work with Yellow, at their conventions and things like
Oh,
that.
right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I've had a lot of opportunity to spend time with different executives in the board game industry and ask them about logistics companies, and get recommendations for this printer or that printer, and so really an inside look at a lot of the board game industry has been really helpful in the process. And I think now having done the Kickstarter and being in the middle of it, I've got a much better idea of that and how we'll move forward, not only with Loot the Body, but also kind of the follow up games. Um, our next game, like I said earlier, it's in the same universe
Yeah.
as Loot the Body, so there'll be some crossover with the art. And then I've actually I've got some giveaways I want to do with some of the art, and I've actually even got a book that I'm working on in the same universe too. So all kinds of stuff.
Is there, I mean, with other games that you're planning, I mean, do you have the big box dungeony type crawler thing? Do you have the RPG there? Is there a worker placement game there, Jason? I mean, have you got
So
all these kind of different ideas kind of bubbling under?
yeah, so the follow-up game actually is more like an RPG, but it
No?
kind of hails back to the classic like Final Fantasy games.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cooperative game where you're exploring a map and you have to achieve different plot points as a group on a variable map, and encounters come up and you have to level up your characters together. to survive and that type of thing. And every time you play, it'll be a little bit of a different experience. And we're still prototyping that one out and kind of working on the mapping system and things. But it is going to be a little bit of a bigger game.
Is it? I mean, there must be a lot more design time going to something like that. I mean, because you're not just thinking, well, here's your rules, this is how you play it, and that's it. You're kind of going to look to kind of different variables and stuff like that when you're putting together the kind of the RPG side of things.
Absolutely, and different storylines and history and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it's definitely a bigger design process. And we've got some other smaller projects we want to work on too. We've got an area control game that we're working on as well. It's I don't know if you said you've got kids. I don't know if you guys have ever played like the lava game at home. Or like
I don't have that. No.
So it's not like a board game, but it's like where the kids pretend like that the floor is lava
the
and you can't
lava,
touch the floor. Yeah. So we're working on a board game version of that. It's an area control, and you hop around in the different portions of the furniture and everyone's a kid, and you're hopping around on the furniture, and you're trying to gain control of different areas as the lava's rising. So that's another kind of mid-sized game that we're working on as well. So we've definitely got different projects underway.
My kid watches a YouTuber called Kid City, and they do the floor is lava all the time. So I know exactly what you mean by the floor is lava, because sometimes when I'm out with my son at the park, I'll just look at him and go, floor is lava, and you see him.
Everybody jumps up.
latest kind of like play equipment. Is there a much heavier, kind of more serious game for yourself as well? I mean, you mentioned obviously the RPG, but have you also got the kind of the big box game which everybody, seems to have inside them and wanting to put together?
I don't have one that I'm working on right now that's a big box game. I think the biggest project we've got right now is actually a project that's a multi-game project. It's a modular. Okay. It's a modular system. So you get the one box, and then you actually get expansions to it.
Okay.
They're all based on kind of a 16-bit universe. So you've got there's a side scroller, and there's a fighting game, different things. And so we're looking at ways to turn one game into, 4 or 5 different games.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, as far as B Team goes, the B Team is going to keep on going. Is it just the B Team? Does it just become from, obviously it's yourself and your wife, so it's the Bice team?
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Is that
so the B Team's kind of been a joke among the family for a long time, where we we call ourselves, hey, B Team, load up in the van. In fact, we've got a little van, and we call it the B Team bus. But that's how we started out. That's how we got the name, and it's kind of a play, as well, because you don't think of the B Team's like, oh, that's the B Team, but I'm like, no, we're gonna own it. We're the B Team because we're B for best, right? And
that's right.
And so we've kind of owned that, and I'm working on bringing other people into it. I've got some other friends. Atlanta's a good area for a lot of different game designers and things like that. So I've got some other designers that I'm looking to bring on board and help design some of the upcoming titles.
Was PAX Unplugged? That wasn't near you guys at all. Was that Philly?
Yeah, that was Philly. I was there though.
Were you? Oh, are you demonstrating as well?
Yeah, I did some demos, and then also worked with Yellow there.
Oh, cool. So what kind of things were you demonstrating? I mean, what kind of things were you demonstrating with Yellow then?
So with Yellow, we were just kind of showing off the new titles. I actually spent most of the weekend doing Giant King of Tokyo. I don't know if you've been to any of the cons where they have the Giant King of Tokyo, but man, I love seeing kids play with that thing. They pick up these pieces of these monsters that are the same size they are, and they're moving them around. They've got these dice that are the size of small soccer balls, and they're flinging them all over the place. It's just the joy on their faces, and people say, "Oh, it's Giant King of Tokyo," and so it's a lot of fun.
There is only one thing better than King of Tokyo, which would be Giant King of Tokyo. I think the only other thing I've seen which is giant is I think it's a giant Takenoko, I think, and Luke Hector, who's a friend of the show, he says, I've got Takenoko. I've got deluxe Takenoko. I've now got giant deluxe Takenoko. And this panda's like the size of a small dog. You don't put it away in a box. You put it in like a pen when you finish with it. The thing's so huge. And the bamboo, he's just using that as it's just real bamboo. They don't even bother making that stuff out of plastic. They just actually deliver real canes of bamboo that you can connect together and everything like that as well. So it's kind of cool. With with us entering into the season of regretful sales decisions after Black Friday and heading into the joyous month that is December, where we will no doubt be advertised in various kind of ways. Is there games that you mentioned? Obviously, you'll go and spend some family time. Do the family still play a lot of board games? I mean, will you be meeting everybody for Christmas dinner and be taking a couple of, I asked you to bring the after dinner mints. It's like Jason says he's brought the cardboard instead. So
yeah, my family tends to pick on me a little bit because I always bring games to our different events. Our family, we're getting together with my wife's family for Christmas, and
okay.
So we'll be renting a house together, and I'll be taking a few games over there, and I try and mix it up at different levels. I'll bring stuff like Sheriff of Nottingham or Dixit and kind of stuff like that, and then I try and sneak in something a little bit heavier where I can.
Twilight Imperium.
Well, maybe not that heavy. You've got to know your audience, right?
Exactly. So what I do with this ship again? You move it. What I do with this one? Oh, then we all sit around for 4 hours and get confused with the rules. Oh, is this a Fantasy Flight game? You got that right.
That's their thing, isn't it? They love big board games at Fantasy Flight. I was playing Star Wars with one of my buddies recently, and we spent probably 3 hours playing through the first scenario. It's like these are the rules, but here's what you should do when you play it the first time. That's when you know you're in trouble, is when you've got a different set of rules we're gonna really dumb this down for you for the first time you play it, and then we get done with it. And I tell you what, I was the Rebels, and I hated it the whole time. I was like, I wanted to go in there and do space battles and all kinds of stuff, and I was like, I've got to run away all the time. And I'm all excited, like, oh, I got 2 new ships this turn. He's like, oh, I got 17, but I won, so it was okay. I was okay with it after that. But
was that Rebellion?
It was, yeah. And
that takes up some table space. I've seen people kind of open it up and say, no, you need a bigger table. Okay, well, I'll do this. No, you're going to need to move your glass. Okay, well, we're going to put it down at the edge. No, you're going to need to move your glass and everything you own out of the kitchen.
To the other room, yeah.
To the other, yeah, exactly. Just move to the side, because if you see people set up and it's about, the board must be about 6 feet long.
Yeah.
It's like a grown man can pretty much lie. If you've got a back complaint, you can go and lie down on Star Wars Rebellion, and it'll sort you out if you sleep on the Star Wars Rebellion board overnight.
Yeah. I want to see that at a convention in a giant size, like just the whole exhibit hall, just one giant Star Wars Rebellion.
Just one cool thing. I remember ages ago I had an idea about having Star Wars Rebellion in one room, then Star Wars Armada in another room, and then Star Wars X-Wing in another room, and then Star Wars Imperial Assault in one more table, and then finally a game of Star Wars Destiny. And what you did is it would just last for years. You basically moved up and down the tables depending on what you were doing. So if you're doing like a big cruiser battle, you'd be in Armada. If you were deciding you were just down on the planet and you were fighting soldier against soldier, you would play Destiny. And then if you were wanting to go back to the main story, everybody would shuffle off up to Star Wars Rebellion. And I just don't have either the room space or the patience or the friends to do that. Can you imagine that? Do you want to come down and play?
That's a quick way to run out of all 3. So
Exactly. And it's really difficult to set up as a newly divorced man in your own place that's got enough space to swing a cat. Let's be perfectly kind of honest. So just to recap, 13 days to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you are over 25% of your funding target. The quick elevator pitch, Jason, why should people consider chucking a buck in for Loot the Body?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go.
So if you are looking for a dungeon crawl but don't have the time or energy to put one together, check out Loot the Body. It's a semi-cooperative, fast-paced strategy card game with a hint of dexterity. It's a lot of laughs, a lot of fun, and we all know looting the body is the best part of every adventure. Now it's the whole game.
That's perfect. That'll do. And one thing that we do ask everybody is, okay, here you go. You're in a dungeon. I'm going to tailor this question specifically for you, Jason, okay?
Okay.
You are in the treasure room of a dungeon, okay? You've defeated the dragon, or what you assume was the dragon. But actually what you've defeated is you've defeated the baby dragon, and his mother is about to come home and basically melt you into a soft, wet, greasy splodge. However, the dragon, instead of sleeping on gold, has decided over its time to amass a large, amazingly huge collection of cardboard of various board games, to the point where it has every single board game that's ever existed on its big pile. Now, the dragon is going to appear in roughly about 2 minutes, and you can take with you, because you want to be running as quickly as possible, you can take with you, there's a small trolley set off to the side which can fit 3 games in it. Now, those 3 games, you can have any games at all. It can be any number of expansions, it can be any versions or editions of any games. But before Mama Dragon lands down and makes you into a Bice fricassee, what 3 games do you run off with, Jason? What do you take with you?
Let's see. With me, I'm gonna pick up Arcadia Quest.
Okay, it's a good choice.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up. I'm gonna go and pick up Pandemic. We'll say the Legacies. We'll say Pandemic Legacies. A real new experience. And then, number 3. What to do for number 3?
Oh, I'm afraid the dragon's just flying overhead. She's looking really, really annoyed.
Tell you what, I'll go ahead and snag King of Tokyo because it's a crowd pleaser.
Absolutely, excellent. Well, you shall grab them. You run down the corridor. You make it outside the cave, and you're home free. For people that have listened to it and said, "Well, I'm very, very interested in finding out more about this," where do you exist on the interweb nets, Mr. Bice?
So we're on Twitter. We're at BTeamGames.
Okay.
We're on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/rollrumbleloot. And then we've got our own website. It's just thebteamgames.com.
Okay, excellent. And we will make sure that we put these in the show notes so that we have notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we're doing, and we are really grateful for everybody that does, thank you very, very much. You can find us by going on to Twitter, which is We're Not Wizards. You can go and find us on Facebook. Guess what? We're Not Wizards. You can go to Instagram. Guess where we are, Jason?
Something about wizards, I bet.
Yeah, We're Not Wizards, yep. You can go on to YouTube, and our lovely hosts, Podbean, automatically put all our episodes on YouTube for us. But if you want to find us the normal way, if you search for We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast, you will find us there. You will find us on Spreaker, you'll find us on Stitcher, you will find us on Acast. As we say, we always give a little shout out to Podknife, who always kind of they lovingly support us and occasionally give us a shout out as well, which is always very, very nice. If you have liked what you've listened to tonight, check out Jason's game. If you like even more, jump onto Apple Podcasts and please consider giving us a subscription as well. If you like us even more than that, please consider giving us a rating or a review. And if you are going to give us a review, remember, Don't give us a 10, because that makes us big-headed. But on the other hand, don't give us a 1, because that makes us cry. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we are decidedly average. But the person who's not been average is the rather... We were going to put him in the A team, but we prefer to keep him in the B team. It's the rather fantastic, the rather wonderful Mr. Jason Bice. So thank you very much for coming on, sir.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
And best of luck with the campaign as well. Now, there is only 2 more things to do. And the first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Jason?
I don't think so.
Definitely not. We are dungeon explorers looking to take down some bad guys and maybe have a pilfering around the pockets if we defeat them. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So once again, thank you for coming on, Jason. Check out his campaign, Loot the Body. About 13 days to go by the time this goes out. But it's a big goodbye from Jason.
Goodbye, guys.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and we shall be back very, very soon indeed. But until the next time, bye-bye.